Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on governing the metaverse. We have our world famous speakers, Dr. Eric, Mr. Philip, and Mr. Patrick. First, I would like to give chance Dr. Eric.
Well, building the metaverse is a pretty tricky and emerging thing. And fortunately, we have some people who've actually been pretty early in doing some of the groundbreaking work in building the metaverse. So that's a good thing. You got the infrastructure to run this with blockchain, has a lot of work. And on top of that, you've got groups deciding what to do in the metaverse. But as you create new organizations, new even virtual worlds, somebody has to figure out what the rules are and how to go so that somebody doesn't take those over. So that is a lot of the work, and a lot of my work is doing doctor research and doing learning development and building virtual and physical communities. So maybe Dwayne could talk a little bit about his background.
Yes, Mr. Dwayne.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess the start in Metaverse, we didn't even know the term Metaverse a few years ago, but you know, we were old school. We just called it communities, and now to see the play to earn and to see the technology go to somewhere where we can meet up in different environments, and the gamification of us coming together is quite incredible. But I think the foundation of how we organize ourselves and come to consensus really, well, it's been for myself about 3 years where we started a blockchain community, and it was all around playing with governance. And at that time, I really only knew of, you know, one voting structure, the one that we kind of all, you know, maybe are familiar with. You all vote for one person and majority wins. And since then, wow, have we ever gone down the rabbit hole of fairer ways to come to an agreement and a fairer way for us all to be heard. I think one of the starting steps was creating a safe space, right? Creating somewhere where we're all comfortable, right? And I think that's what the developers of these metaverses are trying to do, is put us in a new setting where we're all comfortable to get along. And then the gamification has come that in order to get a reward in these metaverses, or to work our way up to let the community decide that we're important enough to be, you know, decision makers. Yeah, all rests on us coming to consensus. So it's we were into governance before people really cared about governance, I think, in the blockchain space. And now with these games, there's a path that everyone will have to sort of follow to get along and decide the future of our metaverses. Yeah, so it's it's been an exciting experiment.
Thank you, sir.
And it's kind of funny that gaming has become a fertile ground for testing that. For example, some of us have either built the foundations or worked for Alien Worlds, and Alien Worlds has virtual planets. And one of the big challenges is, how do you turn planet governance over to the people dwelling on these virtual planets? So, you know, it's becoming kind of a proving ground for testing how you make decisions. And even within those planets are certain groups like Dwayne and others belong to that figure out how they're going to do things together and what the rules are and how those organizations fit.
Thank you. Mr. Dan, what you want to add for today's dialogue, and especially World Talent Economy Forum, we do more focus on the youth community of Asia Pacific. What the interesting aspects you want to add for the youth of Asia Pacific? Mr. Dan, can you hear me? I cannot.
We see him.
Yes. Mr. Dan, you take your time, no problem. I think you can join again.
Okay. I think you should be able to hear me now.
Yes, now okay.
Okay, sounds good. So sorry for the delay and joining late, and then also my audio issues. I realized my microphone wasn't on. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be here, and it's nice to meet you, Dr. Sharif, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes.
And thank you, Eric, for inviting me as well. And then, yeah, I was just hearing a bit about what Eric and Dwayne were saying about governance with alien worlds and with the metaverse, and so I am very excited about what we're doing. Dwayne started the Alien Worlds Track. I don't know if he spoke about that, so I'm kind of jumping a little bit, and once again I apologize for joining a bit late, but I'm looking forward to our discussion, and thank you once again, and I'm very excited about helping to govern the alien world. And you mentioned something, I think, with the youth, but I didn't hear that, Dr. Sharif.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Patrick.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you to have me on. Thank you, Dr. Sharif and Eric and Duane for this invitation here. So myself, I was joining the Alien World Metaverse governance side, not so much the gaming side. And yeah, until now we had 2 meetings with Duane to be introduced into this metaverse, and I very interested because that has a lot of to do with the governance that we are experiencing also into the EOS community, the Eden on EOS community, the Fractally community. We are experimenting different, let's say, different governance process, and by attending also to this metaverse alien world on the WAX blockchain, that's give a lot of data and metrics to understand about the governance. So it's an iterative process. I am just at the early stage. Nothing is frozen in the stone, and yeah, that's what I can say for now.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Patrick for his work on making the metaverse usable. Something to keep in mind is that a lot of the metaversal found work for governance comes from blockchain. So people go together to say, we're going to go outside of a banking structure and we're going to create a block. But, you know, people run that. It isn't a corporation who got together and decide. So how do people work together to create a block? Well, one of the problems is that when you form a block and a blockchain, is everybody says, well, how does my vote count more than anybody else's? So what typical happens is some people try and get control of a block. Now, the interesting things in the metaverse is that people can either start their own block, or they can take the same software code like EOS and they can fork it. They can go another path and say, well, here we are now, but it's kind of like the US, United States and Britain. At one point they were the same, and then starting from basically the same foundation, they went 2 different ways on how to govern themselves. And that's kind of what happened in blockchain. And when people go to a new block, they say, well, you know what happened with that first one? We don't want that to happen again. So let's put processes and governance in place so that doesn't happen. But then somebody figures out a new way to get control. And then people go, oh, I don't like that. So they form their new one. So the thing is that the metaverse has been a great proving and testing ground for governance, because these things, instead of taking 200 or hundreds of years, they can take months or years to test these ideas out. And so if you look at what a lot of this group is doing, they're testing out governance and the tools to implement that kind of governance. While at the same time, we're also looking in the gaming world as a place where you can practice. Because the thing about the metaverse is test there. It's a great place. It's a great testing ground. So these are all very talented people that are doing all different aspects of building and governing and testing. For example, Dwayne just started a new group just to test it out, saying, how do we put people together every week and make decisions together? It's really about how do you collaborate and reach consensus.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the blockchain. Like anyone in the blockchain space knows that the root layer, the base, is is only able to move forward with consensus. So as the blockchain space has advanced, the token holders or the community has wondered, how do we make sure that the base level is secure, and how do we have a voice? And it's quite interesting that now the second level of games and applications are following the same almost DAC or DAO model. So a decentralized autonomous community, and that they're giving ownership and giving, participation. And instead of saying, this is our proprietary game, you're the player over there and you pay for my goods, and that's it. Now we've come into this metaverse that's inclusive. It needs that resting stone of the blockchain that came to consensus for them to move forward. And that has put the code and the tools and the players in the same room and allowed those players to have a stake and ownership in the game. So the success, in particular, we're talking about Alien Worlds, the success of this innovative company starting the platform and the community coming to join them now rests in the community's hands, because the community has the option to build new experiences and take over planets with their communities. But their challenge in the metaverse to have that ownership, to have that joint ownership and control of decisions, is how does the community fairly decide who's in charge? So, we've seen through especially the EOS IO chains and in WAX, we started with voting being how many of the tokens did you have in your wallet? And then we moved forward and said, well, maybe we need to organize ourselves in different groups and different interests. So maybe we give tokens in the form of an NFT to show that you've made it up to some level, that you're responsible enough to make decisions. And the latest experiment is we're using something called fractal governance, where it's more about one member, one vote, but we decide, who's going to get that vote to be the person that we elect only by participating in governance. So there's no tokens I can buy. There's no NFT I can go to the market to go get to participate. You have to be active. And I believe that sort of participation, where we can see each other just like today and make some connections, and that we keep coming back every week to a weekly meeting where we get to discuss our passions, but also we're rating each other on what we've done. So it shows the whole community what we've done, so they can see who's trying to be a leader, and then our peers, our peers around us, are the ones choosing who we think are best for the organization, or who have given the most contributions. So just sort of that next step in governments that we think is transparent and more equitable, and there's no outside factors or influencers that can just buy their way in. You actually have to participate in governance.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr.
one
Dan.
of the first problems, and you can see this in that book, More Equal Animals, and you can get that book for free at moreequalanimals.com, is in a winner-take-all kind of environment. So Sharif and I decide that our vote should be worth more than the three of the other people here, than Dwayne's, Dan's, and Patrick's. So we form a party, and we agree that we're going to push these initiatives. We're going to vote. Well, maybe Patrick and Dan don't like that, so they form their own party to combat us. But then they're even because it's 2-2, so they enlist Dwayne. So now Dwayne goes like that. So we go, well, we don't like that. So we go get 2 more people. Then they go get 3 people. Then we get 4 people. And so whenever you run these game simulations where it's a winner take all, it always devolves into 2 parties, because that's the only way you can win is by getting bigger. And the biggest you can get is when there are 2 parties. So at that point, then the parties start having their own opinions over the individuals. For example, in the United States, we have over 300 million people in 2 parties. It's very doubtful that 2 parties can represent 300 million plus opinions very well. So that's one of the first things you have to do is, how do you prevent people in governance from building parties? And that's only one of the ways that people take over and you lose control of governance.
Thank
Did
you.
I explain that well, Patrick?
Mr. Patrick, you want to add some points with Dr. Eric Dews?
Yeah, at the stage that we are now, because we are in the early stage, so don't do any speculation or stopped things into your mind. I think one of the ultimate goal, because there are different ultimate goals, but one of the ultimate goals of this experiment, or those experiment, is to be a process. And it's a process to gathering the subjective weighted voice of the community that the different circles around EOS have raised in collaboration. I speak about collaborative circles. And the Alien World Fractal is a circle. The Eden Fractal, led by Dancing Joy and other, let's say, initiators of this circle, have the same, in common, the same ideas, the same will. And we have the Genesis Fractal, led by Daniel Larimer, going into the direction of the More Equal Animal books, to have something very independent, autonomous, and decentralized at the most. And what is decentralized at the most is the ideas, the information, and turn it into knowledge of what the people have raised as ideas. And those ideas and information are not seizable. You cannot take those ideas. That belongs to you. That's your mind. So I think what we want to do here is to come to the conclusion, not to the conclusion, but to a new mindset shifting, that the ideas, the data, have to turn into knowledge, and all that in collaborative circles, very autonomous, loosely coupled circles, to avoid incumbent advantages, to avoid incumbent advantages, and also minimize the liability, and increase the distribution. Not to say decentralization, because decentralization is not really the end goal. The goal is to have the data distributed at the most. So by doing that into a metaverse like the Alien World with a DAO, and doing that also in other circles, we will have a lot of metrics, we will have a lot of data that our, let's say, decision leaders can take into account, and to move it, let's say, to take the best decision. Like not like in the current world government, where you have a bunch of people around the table and taking themselves decisions without to include the below circles, and the below circles is the rest of the community, and the rest of the community has the right to create circles. We have the right to create circle themselves. The board, they can have also circles, because they need to take some operational decision. That's very important. They have their own circles, but they have not to forget the rest of the community. And the rest of the community is, in this case, in this metaphor here, we have Alien World, Fractal, Gaming, Metaverse, a DAO, Concealers, and other circles. And we have to be inclusive, very inclusive into the mind. And to come back on what said Eric, maybe tomorrow we have into our circle some parties. I will make a party with Dan, and we will be the new decidors. No, that's not that. I speak for myself, and I think Dan also. We are at the most inclusive, and if you want to do that, you need people that have a mindset, very open mind. And open mind doesn't mean that you are not able to take decision, but you want to see the full spectrum of all the values before to take any biased decisions. Very important.
Excellent. Mr. Dan, very interesting discussions. What the new strategic view you want to add, especially when we think about metaverse and metaverse governance? This is the future. So what type of strategy we can take to handle this governance of metaverse?
Thank you, Dr. Sharif, and thank you, Patrick and Dwayne, Eric, for the great thoughts too. So I very much agree with what everybody's been speaking about here for the most part. And I think that fractal governance is key, as Dwayne was saying before. We can govern in ways that aren't ruled by a token holder vote. It's not plutocratic, but it can be meritocratic, and it can be judged by the peers, people who are participating in the metaverse, in metaverses like Alien Worlds, and then all kinds of different metaverses around the world. We can and we should use these processes, especially with fractal governance, people getting together on calls like these. And thank you so much for setting this up, Eric and Dr. Sharif. And then thank you, Dwayne, for setting up the calls. Patrick also sets up calls. So it's basically community leaders, like people here and people in so many other places, who are starting up meetings, and people get together, see each other via video calls, and then using this credibly neutral process of fractal governance that Dan Larimer is pioneering with the Fractally team, and that we're experimenting with and innovating with the Alien Worlds and Eden fractals, and basically using this cooperative structure where we can meet on calls for an hour, have a quick meeting, and decide how to allocate the power and so forth in the community, and then also be able to coordinate on what the community wants to do, because everybody's meeting together. And with this consensus mechanism, then we also gain coordination power, where we can cooperate to accomplish shared objectives and so forth. So I hope that answers your question, Dr. Sharif. I think that fractal governance is key and profoundly helpful for governing in the metaverse.
It might be helpful to talk a little bit about what's meant by the idea of fractal. The thing to keep in mind is, so the Fractally group, which you can look at gofractal.com, and that's working on the tools and the methodology and the testing of just governance in general. The idea is after you come up these, you can give tools to anybody because every group has a different purpose or a different reason. You could have a governance group on the World Talent Economy Forum if you wanted to. You have different goals, so it's not trying to tell people what to do. It's a process on how you do that. My role is saying, how can we work that actually into communities, like real and virtual, but even into real community development. Within that, people are saying, well, yeah, what do we need to do? So Dwayne is heading up a group that's looking at, let's actually do something in the gaming governance. And Dan's looking at, people, EOS, that's regular commerce, day-to-day stuff going on. So we're kind of looking at the big picture, and then we're also sometimes us collectively or individually, I pick these people here to invite who are working on the big picture and on individual pictures. And the idea of, fractional governance is it doesn't take that many dominoes of varying sizes to knock down the empire, a domino the size of the Empire State Building. But if you put all those dominoes and little dominoes and try and knock over the Empire State Building, nothing will happen. So it's really like, how do you pick the individual dominoes and build them up to give them power that actually represents what people are talking about, so that, the big domino doesn't get control. It just kind of directs what all the small dominoes are doing. So that's the fractional part, is how do you actually make decisions and give it some power so that you can have a real impact. And one of the biggest impacts that you can have in fractional governments is just to not play, to go do your own way. I don't like this domino, I'm going to do my own domino, and that's okay. Did I explain that well, guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Mr. Philippi, yeah.
Yeah, I think you explained that great. And why governance in the metaverse, right? I think the advent of gaming and how technology has allowed people around the world to skip legacy systems, like whole continents that didn't have phone service all of a sudden skip to smartphones. We have this ability to cooperate in these DAOs and DACs where we didn't have the sort of enterprise before. You know what I mean? I'm not getting any credit from buying the same food products from the same manufacturer, except just getting that food. And if we look forward, the systems that we value on this planet, if we were all stakeholders and had a voice, this could lead to those big ideas of us having a bigger voice and being able to create the world we want to live in. So the accessibility combined with the gamification and new commerce is just this fantastic playground to practice governance. And in this case, fractal governance being our current experiment. And I really know and I'm passionate that if we could use this to practice and have fun, that governance isn't this thing that just makes us go to sleep and feel that we're powerless and we just know it's a rigged system and what can we do? We have no strength to make change in this world. Well, I honestly believe that the strength we have is our voice coming to consensus with small groups that we have interest in. And that right now, the advent of blockchain and gaming and us having a say in these games and some equity is just the perfect, way to start this and start activating people and let them know they do have a voice. And even though some of these tokens and worlds actually equate to real money, if you took it out of the ecosystem and exchange it, that money can go into your bank account. We still have this mentality that it's still virtual. It's just this, metaverse that I'm just playing in. So if we can keep that essence of fun and playfulness while leading us to making decisions and communicating with our community, that's the real goal here. And it's been exciting to see how fast, just in 10 years, that these ideas of governance has come through to geek some people into, crypto, that, when I originally thought of Bitcoin, when I started in Bitcoin 10 years ago, the most exciting thing I heard about it was knowing that 2/3 of the world's unbanked, and them having a new financial system could really empower them. Now I really see that the empowerment is for those people to come together and have a voice and come to consensus to see what their community really needs. So these little steps of involving people and rewarding them in the metaverse, I believe is, that's why we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Dan.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree, and I don't know if I can add more to what Dwayne said right there, because he said it perfectly. And I'm super excited to be working with y'all on this journey and helping to spread these ideas and help educate everybody about these ideas, and also help build the tooling and so forth. And I'm also thankful for you, Dr. Sharif and Eric, for hosting this podcast and forums where we can speak about this. I'm also curious too. I don't know if it's my place to ask questions here, but I'd be curious, Dr. Sharif. It's the first time I've met you, and so I'm curious about what you think about these ideas, and if you're very familiar with these ideas with fractal governance and so forth, and what you think about everything here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, from World Talent Economy Forum, we do more focus on developing nations, specifically in Asia Pacific. We do work with different government agencies, corporations, and academy. Major thing is that we are creating awareness. Definitely, this idea need to be spread more because we need to create more awareness in developing nations. Beside that, I like the idea, but definitely the idea has some practical applications. Hopefully, your team can help us to apply these applications and idea and everything. And one thing, this is very important for us. Like we want human progressions. We want human developments. If any idea can help the human resources and help to uplift our society, especially from the developing world, why not? We can work together and we can apply it. That is our objective. But we take a lot of action. Whatever we are discussing, this is our around 486 episodes, 586 episodes, and we are engaging with millions of people in the developing nations, many countries, like scientific societies, government, corporation, they are working with us. So we love to take more action. Actually, action is the key. So that is our objective. Yeah. Anything you want to ask?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you for explaining that. And that all sounds like super hopeful work. So thank you for all the work you've been doing. I didn't realize that this had been going so long too. So congratulations on a long running show. And thank you so much. And then, yeah, I think that what we're doing here with the fractal governance process, I believe it can profoundly benefit societies all around the world and all kinds of different nations and corporations and just communities. I mean, from my experience, just doing these fractal governance, we started with Uddin on EOS about a year and a half ago or so, and it's been totally life-changing. And then we've had, then we started doing these fractal meetings with Fractally about 5 months ago now or so. We've done, I think, 20 weeks, and we started doing the Uddin fractal and the Alien Worlds fractal both over the past month. So it's just been like growing substantially over the past year and a half, and it's totally reoriented my life because like it's so valuable both on a personal level from how much I'm meeting people and how much I appreciate everybody who I'm meeting. Like Dwayne mentioned, it brings communities together and it's fun, and it's also empowering the communities to come to consensus while also getting to know each other, and also enabling communities to coordinate. So on both a personal level and on a societal level and a global level, I think that this will be profoundly beneficial for everybody in the world and all these societies. And so thank you for doing all this great work, Dr. Sharif, and also Eric too, and everybody here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working together more and also helping the communities and the nations and corporations and so forth that you're working with to help benefit people with this process.
Excellent.
Well, one of the reasons that I reached out to Dr. Sharif is just because of that. He is very, very good and very conscious of the fact that while technology is wonderful, it's not evenly distributed all over the world. And this platform, the World Talent Economy Forum, actually reaches out to high technology people, but it's designed to reach out to people with very little technology too, and benefit that. That is why the World Talent Economy Forum vision is so powerful. And the point to bring up with the fractal government that we're talking about, and especially with Fractally, is this idea that technology shouldn't rule the process. So you could do this process with a deck of playing cards. You know, it's not, you don't need technology to do it. And the fractal tools are designed so that you don't have to go to Amazon or Google. You can actually take these tools, if you do want to use technology, put them on your own local servers or computers that you control. So you can do this without any technology, but if you use technology, you can do it on local and available technology, you know, and you can even fit this to very low tech, very high tech. But that's one of the things is not only should people control the governance, they should be able to control the tools and technology and infrastructure that hold people captive because, you know, then that's power. So you want to make sure that nobody controls the knowledge. There isn't a roadblock on all the knowledge, because consensus itself is a piece of data. If you look at when they talk about these distributed autonomous organizations, all they're really talking about is consensus stored. That's what the DAO or the organization really owns, is the consensus.
Absolutely, Eric. I want just to complement here that for really to be a DAO or a decentralized autonomous community currency, because the C can mean many things. What is very important to be called NAMED, a decentralized autonomous community. First point, it's to leverage the smart contract and to store the consensus on chain. Very important. Because yes, we can do with a play of cards. Yes, we can do without any technology. But what gives the blockchain here as a value-added mechanism is to store the consensus on chain. And you can use any tools that you want. You can use Zoom meetings to do rooms and randomize the people into rooms. You can use other tools other than Zoom. There are many tools. That's not the problem. The front end is more the back end, the smart contracts. And the smart contracts here are very important because they distribute the data at the most, and also that store the consensus. And to finish, no, that will never be finished. I think we will have other calls, but something very important is to testify your intent and do your actions and deliver those actions. And the blockchain for that, to have the smart contract and to store the intent of what those the IDs today of us, for example, into this room we have nice ideas, we bring good ideas. That's stored on the blockchain. That's our intent, and it's today. And maybe in a couple of weeks we will have other ideas, because we will have improve our mindset, and we will have a new, fresh mind on chain. And from there, we have to iterate. So that's, for me, a perpetual improvement. And that's need a lot of resilience, because you can say, oh, I am disappointed because now we have not yet something, and you will have later on. So that's need a lot of resilience, and to do the things also repeatedly. That's very important.
Thank you, sir. This is excellent discussion, and definitely World Talent Economy Forum. We are actually advocate for modern science, engineering, and technology, and we do more focus on developing nations, because we want to minimize the gap in between developed world and developing worlds, and we need to work together. And that is the issue that we are working, and through this process we are engaging with millions of people in Asia Pacific and Africa. Especially, we have many interesting projects. We have Nikola Tesla Technology Conference next year in India. And this conference, beside this scientific conference, actually, we are uplifting 15 villages of India. Beside that, in South Asian other countries like Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and these countries we are contributing, and we are developing knowledge-based ecosystem. Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, China, we are contributing. Middle East, we are contributing. Our major objective, we want to develop a knowledge-based communities, and we need your support. We need your collaborations and partnerships, and definitely governing the metaverse is important for us. We want to do more research. We are publishing a lot of papers. So hopefully we can publish paper together, and we can help different government to develop policy, how they can manage. Even example, in Bangladesh Energy Ministries, we are working. They have 55,000 employees. We are providing them training. So if you have better idea, better opportunities, and better things, we can work together. So that is our objective, and hopefully through this process we can develop better world. So thank you everyone for joining today's session. I directly want to go for the concluding remarks. First, I request Dr. Eric, what is your concluding remarks for today's session?
And one of the keys is that, that those conferences are a perfect place for sessions or panels or even workshops on how to do it. Because again, we're using the metaverse as the training ground to operate in the metaverse, but to move into real physical space. And that's where that's going. And the other thing to keep in mind is the purpose of governance is to sort value. How do you get a consensus on value? For example, you host this event and put it on. That's a lot of value right there. So how do you use and determine the value of a creator and host of a live streaming network? How do you do that? So one of the tools is actually randomness, because if you've read the book The Wisdom of the Crowds, it talks about how smart people can be in determining what things mean after they're presented to them, but it doesn't work if people are just doing groupthink. So one of the tools in governance is randomness. So every week when your groups get together, you're automatically and randomly divided into different groups to work together, so that you don't get one group controlling or thinking the same thoughts. And I think diversity is one of the most powerful things that this brings. For example, I was at a directors conference and they were talking about epic fails, what almost took down these companies that you've all heard. And the directors there talking, and I remember one of the directors, when they asked him, what do you do to plan for things that you can't plan on? He said, I surround myself with as many people as possible who don't think like me, and I listen to them very carefully. And that's one of the things that the fractal governance brings is the idea of mixing new ideas all the times and using that consensus over time to share value. Like, you know, if we were talking about who should be our podcaster or host, you know, Sharif has some value from that alone. And so that may be more value than somebody who has no experience. So, you know, how do you determine that? And with metrics, and mostly it's through people.
Yeah, the randomness of getting your community together and breaking them into rooms and spending an hour, you know, what we're discussing now can be used anywhere because it's a community. What's a community? We're sharing some values. We're doing some work together. And our meetings, we're sharing our passions, but we're sharing what we've done for our communities over the last week. And this is what we've prescribed. It can be, you know, it can be tuned in to your own community. But what it's doing is at the end is our groups that are in random groups are coming to consensus of who contributed the most. And yes, at the end, that consensus gets put into a blockchain. But the other portion is that value is shared to that community based on those levels. So this is a perfect way to merge into the communities you talked about, to incentivize and reward and share a respect for any public goods. So if there's a scientific group that has to do a report every week, well, maybe they could do their reports using this 1 hour process, and the community shares their respect and distributes, you know, value to that group. So there's a lot of people doing public goods. Say maybe it's in agriculture. Say it's the people that are doing a permaculture project that just don't, you know, they don't have enough strength. Well, we can bridge these communities, and these communities that are using this fractal process can help the whole. So this is not an isolated technology for us. If I could leave one lasting message, is that the success of our groups using this fractal process is for other groups to be using it as well. And the more that we use the process, the whole blockchain and metaverse creates value because we see value in it. And that can rise all of our communities. And that can rise up all of our, you know, rise all tide. So this is not something that we have to push off into the future. We can start engaging right now and creating value for our communities and for the communities that are you know, woven into what you're doing, Dr. Sharif. So yeah, I really value the time here, and I'll lend our time and experience to bring other people to try this experiment, because it does share the respect for the people doing good works that aren't always seen. So yeah, I'm excited to help in the process.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, sir.
another thing is this idea of consensus of value. So a lot of times a business pays you and then say, go do this, and you get paid ahead of time for the contribution you're going to do. Some of the fractal groups do the other way, saying, what did you do this week? You know, part of it is setting goals, consensus on goals together. And it's like, well, what did you do this week? Well, let's figure out how to value and even in cases pay for what you did. So if our goal was to get the word out in live streams, then Dr. Sharif would have a pretty big value level. And the idea would be to get people in groups to say, oh yeah, this is the value. So in that case, the value isn't, it's not that everybody is equal. Everybody has an equal opportunity, and everybody's voice and vote and consensus is equal, but contributions are not equal. And that's just the natural state of things. If you look at Pareto principles, you know, whatever you do, there's some people that are really good. Not everybody is a world-class athlete. That's okay. Not everybody is a world-class scientist. That's okay too. But the real question is, how do you come to consensus and value? And randomness often has an interesting way of making sure that it's not just a few people. So it's that independent thought analysis that makes wisdom of the crowds work, not groupthink.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dan, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Thank you, Dr. Sharif and Eric and Dwayne. I'll keep it relatively short, as there's so much to say, but in a matter of efficiency. So one, I agree with what Eric's saying about the importance of the randomness and empowering communities with this way. And then I also very much agree with what Dwayne was saying too. And I suppose maybe I'll conclude by just tagging on a little bit to what Dwayne was saying about how this process is super accessible. It also ties into what Eric and Patrick were saying earlier too, about how like it's a very simple process. It doesn't need, you know, some major technology to be built in the future, something like that. We have all the tools that we need to do it right now. Obviously, we can build better tooling, and we will build better tooling to make it more accessible. But right now, we can start empowering like the communities that you're working with, Dr. Sharif, and just like we started empowering the Alien Worlds community and the EAD Fractal community and the Fractal Genesis community. Basically, it's just getting on calls like these. It's just people leading it, like you and Eric and everybody here and everybody around who's just starting up a call, whether in their local community in person and doing the cards, or doing it over the internet like this on video calls. It's empowering for everybody. It's greatly empowering for everybody, and it's easy to start. It's just a matter of just getting people together on the call and sharing a bit of education to help people understand how this can be so helpful for everybody, and then doing it. And then once people start doing it, they realize how fun it is and how helpful it is for the community. So I suppose I'll leave it there. And thank you once again, Dr. Sharif and Eric, for inviting me and for inviting us. And I'm looking forward to working with you and helping you achieve all the goals that you're working on with all these organizations around the world. And I'm looking forward to helping empower everybody in all these communities with these vital fractal governance processes. And once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Patrick, what's your concluding remarks?
Yeah, so first, thank you to have us here, Dr. Sharif. That's a nice platform to communicate with you, because you are a broader audience. And yeah, so myself, I am doing also workshops into the EOS ecosystem, and that will be a pleasure to have you on an interview to understand more in detail what are you doing. I am also very interested about the platform labs by Sangeet Paul Choudhary. I think you should know him as a tank system. He is since 2015, 2016, looking at how the platforms have to evolve. And now we come to the again, it's not a conclusion. The platform have to evolve to something more with the protocols and with the blockchain. And I think this platform that you give us is the perfect, I would say, onboarding for newcomers that want to know about maybe the fractal governance, that want to know maybe more about EOS, the ecosystem, because we are a great ecosystem. It's not based only on the technology, it's very human. And we have this fractal governance process that is a very good one process to follow. We are just at the early stage, as I said. And yeah, I thank you for this opportunity today to meet us here. I thank you, Eric, Duane, for that, and Dan to have joined today. And I would say see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is really great sessions. And Dr. Eric and all of our speakers, we want to offer you a series because we want to go detail about your process and about your activities. And we engage with millions of people in Asia Pacific. Especially we focus on research and innovations. Especially, you know, that the developing world need to develop their own ecosystem based on research and innovations. We are trying to help them. So all of your help and support will help our community. Especially we focus on grassroots level people. With the help of grassroots level peoples, definitely we can develop a better ecosystem, and definitely we need your knowledge. There are many people, always I say, there are many people, they're hungry. So when they're hungry people and smart people like you, they work together, they can develop better world, they can develop better solutions. So I want to invite you all in our projects, and hopefully with our collaborations, we can solve grassroots level people problem. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
So if people want to learn more, you can go to moreequalanimals.com. If you want to learn, that's just about lessons on governance. If you want to learn about what a lot of us are doing to actually build the tools and methods to do that, you can go to gofractally.com. The big thing to keep in mind is that we are trying to give all this stuff away for free. And if you want to start a fractal like Dan is doing and Dwayne is doing, I'm sure there's lots of help in going to those fractals. And by the way, if you want to participate in fractal genesis, you can actually come in and practice this every week with us. It's open. The start is to learn a little more about it. So it's free and available, and we're glad to help.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. I request all of our audience, please share our content with your government, with your corporations and academy. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.